and welcome to another episode of Copy That. My name's Dan Portnoy. Thanks for being here. This podcast is about creativity and how we come up with ideas for things. Specifically today, though, we're going to be talking about an idea I had. Several years ago, I was working at the Union Rescue Mission, and I went to the Robert McKee story class, and he kind of broke my brain. And through 3 years of sweating it out with Union Rescue Mission and raising money, we raised 300% over the year before, 3 years in a row. And so I took that framework that we used, or that I used, while I was helping them and consulting with them, and I made it into a book, and it's called The Nonprofit Narrative. And since that time, I've raised, about $250 million with nonprofits. And so that framework has been very helpful to a lot of different people. It's used in schools, in nonprofit classes on how to do nonprofit marketing. And so the next couple of episodes, we started with Brad 2 weeks ago, and this week we continue with Naheemah, who's a marketing director at the East, or I think she's actually classified as a development director, and I apologize. But she works for East Los Angeles Community Corporation, or ELACC, and we did some great work together. And I'm super thrilled, not just of the time while I was there, but actually since. This is a butt-kicking organization. I just have to get that out of the way. They are doing some crazy stuff, and they really look at some long haul pictures. They actually been fighting a lot of things, but one of the big things that they went through or finished while I was there was they were helping street vendors and the legalization of street vendors. And I was so excited for them. They were like, yeah, this happened. It's so great. And I was like, that's amazing. So you've been working on this for 6 months? And they were like, 10 years, Dan. And I was like, oh, wow. So further perspective, which was a good thing. But today we talk with Naheemah. She's going to give us the lowdown on just how that framework from the nonprofit narrative helped her and what I guess would be called a mid-sized small nonprofit. I think it was over $1 million and annually in what they were doing. But it's just pretty interesting. I just think they're super interesting. And Naheemah, take it away. Tell us what you're all about.
My name is Naheemah McMicheaux-McCallop. I am a director at East LA Community Corporation, operating in the Fund Development and Communications Department. And I am also a coach for women, and I help and inspire women to ignite the story inside them.
Love it. So, Naheemah, I was very fortunate to work with you on a longer basis. We worked together for several months, going through a lot of things. I will say the thing that I loved so much about working with you was that when we talked about putting together an editorial calendar and how you took what after you got done with it, what I felt was kind of a chintzy document that I sent your way, because you just made it so incredible and you just added so much to it. I've never seen Excel work like that before. It was unbelievable. So specific in so many different categories, and it was like a work of art. It was impressive.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, you were certainly the inspiration for what we decided. Honestly, what you presented it got our brains turning to say, okay, this is how we can think about how we communicate, and then adding on the other layers of, how often, and what is the theme, what is the sub-theme, and how do we integrate all these different components of what we do within this organization and build around one solid theme so we have a consistent message. And ultimately, the result of what we created from your editorial calendar was exactly that, where we were able to look at each and every day and decide what we were talking about each week. What day of the week was it going to be about, our call to action for raising funds? What was our theme going to be based on the kind of our framework, where we where you created this language for us where it was very clear as to who we are. And it was like 12 or 13 different statements defining who we are.
Oh,
so
right,
from that,
right, yeah.
So from that information, we pulled out certain ones that worked with our broader themes, because you also created language for us on our pillars. So we had 4 themes that were based on our pillars, and so we divided that up into quarters, and then from there, we had a sub-theme based on the messaging that you provided that was delegated to one per month.
That's so good. Yeah. So you had underpinnings. That's good. Yeah, the language there is kind of like I would do for like even a character in a play or something, or a character in a story. You'd have some background on that character. So that was kind of the thought process with that. So how did you first find out about the nonprofit narrative?
Wow. Well, you know what? I had first found out about you through your book. And when it came time for our organization to make that decision of us revamping our website and our messaging, and just knowing that we were at a place and a pivot in our organization to decide that, okay, you know, we are, our roots are the same, but we're growing, and our growth needs to be reflected in how we talk about our organization. And so I remembered your book, and I was like, let me check into this and just see, see if he's available. And, from there, I reached out, and, it's history.
Yeah. But, I mean, how did you even hear about the book, like, to start?
Okay, so for me, I have always worked in the nonprofit world, and so I found your book to be highly effective, because I'm certainly, I would say, a person sensitive to language. Like, I love language. I think language is so important for professional and also personal development and how we use our language. And so when I came across your book, it was everything that I was looking for in how to tell a story, because storytelling is imperative in the work that we do, because if we can't tell the story of the individuals properly, our audience isn't going to be able to connect with us.
Yeah, definitely. Now, it's been about a year or so. Have you been able to see the difference or any kind of trajectory change, or really any big positives?
Absolutely. I think that from our relationship and working together and really utilizing those principles that you gave us with storytelling has been an embedded thread across our organization internally, to where even organizationally and across our departments, we have objectives that are centered around storytelling, where we did not have that before.
Oh, wow. Well, and you guys have such an interesting take with Quetzal's role there. How has that impacted or adjusted? Because I know there was like some time of just kind of thinking about how does our history factor into our storytelling, and how is a culture impacting our storytelling?
Yes, absolutely. I think, as you said in your book, storytelling takes courage, I believe you said it's 2 parts courage and then 1 part artistry. And I think that's something that our organization, we're coming to understand and realize more, that, we can share our truth, but it also is a technique to doing it as well. And so in reference to like the cultural aspect, it's uplifting our culture, but it's also having a strategic way of sharing it. We've pivoted in that direction. Not pivoted, but we've I would say, enhanced what we're doing and how we want to share out our culture, where even in our language, we have moved culture and vitality as really being a thread throughout all of our pillars, where it's not just a separate department, but it's embedded in what we do as an organization.
Oh, that's so good. Have you seen the results financially with giving, or?
I would say yes. Well, as you know, we are in the heart of planning for Teachable Heights, and we are a lot closer to our goal than we were last year.
Great. I mean, so what do you have any idea in terms of percentage bump? Is it like a 10% increase or a 20% increase? Any kind of idea that way?
Let me quickly do the math right now, and I can tell you. So I believe last year at this time, we were at 110,000 raised, and we're already at 160.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's huge.
Yes, and then another thing that has evolved from our work with you is we've been looking at how do we share out our learning to our audience. Because as an influencer in this industry, you know, we are changing the way what affordable housing looks like, and also the model in which to do it, to include community engagement, to include culture and vitality, to include all the affordable housing. So with that, when you talk, how are we embedding culture, what that we're doing is providing co-assistance that looks like coaching to other organizations so they can learn from our model. And also we can provide different aspects of how we get to the ways in which we share out, our culture.
Yeah. And
taking that to other organizations, like the process that we go through.
Right. Well, especially because you have you're so unique in that with your volunteer department and the way everybody's on the ground and they're moving, and that's just very unique. So,
we've evolved in several different areas. So we took what we learned from you and just ran with it.
I love it. Mm-hmm. That's so great to hear and so encouraging, too. Mm-hmm. Well, Naheemah, thank you so much for taking some time and talking with me about this.
It has been my absolute pleasure.
And that's our episode this week. I want to thank Naheemah for being on the show and giving me the whole lowdown and her take. I just want to also remind you, if you haven't yet, if you know a nonprofit that is in need of help and they're needing a framework, I have a whole bunch of resources at portnoymediagroup.com. Under the resources tab, they can download a whole bonus section with transcripts of these interviews, as well as kind of a workbook that goes through the whole book. If you go through this workbook, you're going to have a great framework to be able to build a better story. And if you could help me spread the word on that, that'd be great. It's free resources. All you have to do is give me your email address and I'll send you the piece right away. It's pretty great. Super duper simple. So thank you for doing so. Well, that's it for us this week. Next week, Ken Mueller. He's a great guy I met as a result of this book. But again, one of the fun things about this is that all of these people, except for my last interview, I didn't know any of these people before I wrote the book. And now I would consider them all friends. So that's super fun. So Ken Mueller's going to talk to us next week. He runs he does development for an organization in Pennsylvania. He's going to get into all the nitty gritty on it. Again, big thanks for listening, and we'll check you next week. On behalf of the cast of thousands, my name's Dan Portnoy. Have a great one, and be safe.